likelihood be a little different than last year. Not necessarily as aggressive and active, but we would like to continue to improve our hockey club if possible, and exploring opportunities to do so with the intention obviously giving our team that has done a pretty good job so far, our coaches, players, staff, attention to the power play, some of the areas that we identified going into this year, and being much, much more competitive. We'd like to give them a bump because they've earned that, but it's an eye towards, obviously this year, but moving forward as well. So that's what our intentions are as we go to the deadline, and that may or may not come to fruition, but we're going to explore them and see what presents. It doesn't mean we're going to sacrifice some of the things that we went through last year to try and address organizational depth, both at prospect level, draft capital level, and at the NHL level. And I think that we've done a decent job there, but it's only a one-year snapshot, and we have to have an eye towards what our intentions were back then. And but again, I respect when Morgan Geekie and players speak out that they would like the opportunity to continue to move forward with their group, because they've done a good job.
That was General Manager Don Sweeney earlier this week on Monday, so 5 days ahead of the deadline. We've got boots on the ground at Warrior Ice Arena. Judd, Brick, and Adam are there. Meanwhile, what are you pointing at? You recognize someone there skating, Billy? Your eyes aren't that good.
Is that Judd or Brick right
on
there
the
on
ice,
the left side?
Holding the yellow pylons.
Could be Pellerin. Pellerin's used to catching, so maybe that's him. Right there's Pellerin. He's coming into the camera right now. There he comes.
Coming in hot.
There he is. Here he is. Bend the knees, Pellerin. Bend the knees.
No, those guys.
This is
the kind of show it's going to be.
We might be watching that for an hour and a half. Just watch everybody skate around.
C-SPAN on
NASCAR.
It's the equivalent of C-SPAN.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
You guys sent Matone from our trade deadline special from our Salem 5 studios. Guys, it's been a long time since the three of us have sat at the desk together. I think you've had Adam as a host for a while, then you've been in the booth, even though I call you ringside, I'm sorry.
Yep.
You've been in the booth, and it's been a while, so we're reunited.
You were stuck with me last night.
I've been stuck with you for 6 seasons, I think.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? No, this is going to be quite the show. Hey,
it's quite the show.
Quite the show. You guys are going to be of course, breaking news specialists. I'm going to try to quarterback the show, but really quick, before we get into the details, not so many things happening, at least on the Bruins end for now. Still an hour to go. But last year, you heard Don Sweeney say it's going to be a very different year. You guys remember big blow-up trades, including their captain, and then league-wide, there were 24 trades involving 47 players and 28 draft picks. So we're focused on what the Bruins are going to be doing, but if it's quiet, we'll talk about the rest of the league. And for now, it's quiet.
It's very quiet.
League-wide.
Yeah, exactly. Very quiet. We might be getting into the food talk much sooner than later.
Well, don't drive people away yet. I want them to stay.
We got an hour. This is when it happens. It's gonna. Yeah. There'll be more trickling in, but it hasn't. It seems like the asking prices from all accounts are just very high.
Yeah, so can we speak to the quietness because of what positions that teams are in, and they're kind of middle? Is it because some of them are middle ground?
I think everybody's fishing right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody is fishing, and they put out things, and they're hoping that if eventually somebody says, "Oh, I have to do it," and they bite on it, and otherwise, there's a lot of teams that we know want to do stuff, but the truth, they don't have to.
Well, that's the
thing.
What's changed, like this summer with the salary cap going up exponentially again this summer, is that no one has to make a deal to make their team better next year, to retool next year. You can keep all your good players, you can keep your team and still add in the summer, where in the last few years you had to make moves now if you were out of it to be able to be prepared to turn things around in the summer. That's now changing. So teams that are out of it, like the Rangers, don't have to take a bargain deal on a Vincent Trocheck that we've heard all about for a month now, I think. They don't need to take just a second-round pick for him to get him off the books. They can keep him and still add to their team over the summer.
Or they could take that deal come summertime, too. They have enough patience. And the reality is that there's a lot of players out there that are available. But what's been interesting, at least in my estimation, is even the rumor, it's quiet when the rumors aren't even good.
Correct.
Usually the rumors were good a week ago. Right? 5 days, 4 days, and then it's like yesterday and today, it's like nothing.
Quiet.
Yeah.
And how much does this play into it, if at all? And obviously I could be wrong here, but unless you're certain or you're a team, and there are, I believe, only a handful that are like, we are going to go to the Stanley Cup final, we are built for that you're really adding to your team. Whereas if, we talked about the East being wide open, the Atlantic and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that teams, of course, are like, oh, we're going to get out in the second round. Of course, they're all gunning for that final or for the Stanley Cup. But when you're not certain it's going to happen this year, as opposed to certain teams are built for that, you're maybe not making big moves, right?
And there's also a handful of teams that we have a few teams. Buffalo's the prime example that Detroit should be there. I don't know where they're at, Ray.
I'm surprised they're not.
I don't know where they're at.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But you got a couple of teams every year that feel like this is the blossoming. This is the party, right? Like Buffalo, 14 years of misery.
Absolutely.
And now they're back. So they made some moves.
They have, yeah.
And they've been fun. I thought Utah would as well. I mean, they still did. I mean, they did early.
Yeah, they got
I could
weird.
still think they could do another one.
Yes.
But the other's Detroit. To me, I don't understand how Steve Yzerman. I know they say David Perron, but David Perron's been hurt.
Well, I guess, and they got nixed by Myers too. So he did want Myers, right? Out in Vancouver, he didn't come. But beyond that, what's next? Like, where's the next guy?
This
where's
is the time
where's
to go.
Falk?
Because they're no guaranteed, by the way, even getting in.
No, like it's tightening up, and no question they're up against it. So I'm intrigued by that as well. I thought, again, I still think there'll be some deals here in the next 50 minutes, but
absolutely.
I'm surprised that some of the teams that you just mentioned haven't been even more aggressive. Because it's been Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas. It's an arms race in the Central. Minnesota and Dallas are looking at each other. Minnesota makes a deal, Dallas makes a deal. Dallas makes a deal, Minnesota makes a deal to offset each other. That's happening big time out there. And Colorado is just on the other side of it saying, okay, we need to play these guys in the second round. They're the three making all the deals. Where's Vegas? Where's Vegas? Edmonton did a really good job the last few days making their team better. Where's Vegas? They're usually in the mix.
I think it's interesting. You bring up Edmonton. I'm sure we're getting off the rails a little bit here.
That's okay. We're going to talk about a minor move the Bruins made in a second, but finish your thought.
Well, that's good. I look at Edmonton, and I know what you're saying because of the Dickinson and Murphy deals. So they're better, but
Correct.
I still think that I say they're the same team. By the way, that same team could make it back to the final again. And because they're in the easiest, or
Correct.
AKA the worst division in the league, they could skate literally into the Western Final still with that goaltending, which is abysmal for a good team. Imagine if they had average goaltending.
Yeah. Well, but the other thing that they've done in once playoff time comes with that abysmal goaltending, and it hasn't been great prior, is they can find times to lock it down a little bit. They don't lock it down in the regular season right now. They have had times where they've locked it down. I'm curious if that, when you have McDavid and you have Draisaitl and you have an easy path, you have an opportunity. Yeah,
the path is there, no question. Where's Vegas? Vegas did the Rasmus Anderson deal early.
Yep.
They just got Nick Dowd?
Yes.
As well. So to me, that's like they're done. To me, and I think they're looking at we haven't played well at all.
Yeah.
And so I think they're. But what's their goaltending situation?
Well, I know.
That's off. One big question I have for goaltending: does Bobrovsky go somewhere? Mm-hmm. And it feels like there's more.
There was smoke there.
Smoke to that. A little more juice to that. That was the one goalie out there that I think could go somewhere.
Okay, well, they've got 52 minutes to make a deal. And then, of course, I know things get announced a little after that. Guys, let's discuss the Boston Bruins. So today, minor deal here. The team has acquired forwards Alexis Gendron and Massimo Rizzo from the Philadelphia Flyers. In exchange, forward Brett Harrison and defenseman Jackson Edward go the other way. Some Lee Valley Phantoms and some even ECHL playing time for the guys coming this way. And meanwhile, those two with the Bruins organization have not played NHL games.
No. They've been to prospect development camp a handful of times.
Yep.
And I've seen them there. This is the kind of deal that if you're one of those players, you're saying, hey, new start, fresh opportunity, and maybe I can crack the lineup in Philly, and you know what, I'll bring my skill set to Boston. But to sit here and tell you I know that what those two players bring, it would be not accurate.
Well, a question for Sweeney for sure. Sorry, Race, I feel like I cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off at all. Providence is having a fantastic season. They didn't go on a run last year when they had a fantastic season. They got knocked out early. I think what they're trying to do is bulk up down there, a little bit older with Gendron. He's playing, comes in and tries to go on. Like that's what it is. Harrison needs a new spot.
Yes.
They wanted him to score more. I thought he was going to score more. He thought he was going to score more. He gets a nice fresh start going to Philly. He's probably the winner of this deal, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Because he's a young guy that had 50 goals in juniors that's getting a good, nice start.
Okay, guys. As mentioned, we have Adam Pellerin and Judd and Brick standing by live
got off the ice.
at Warrior Ice Arena. Yeah, exactly. He took a break from skating. Adam, as we're discussing here, rather quiet right now, league-wide. Obviously, some big deals that happened not just today, but in the week leading up that we'll discuss here. You guys are going to be staying on top of all the Bruins rumors and the trades if they eventually do happen. But right now, as we're making sense of is this what the Bruins' moves are in the future, are you expecting anything to come down? Are the guys expecting anything to come down in the final 45 minutes?
Well, it's been quiet so far. I think the most entertaining thing is the free skate, whatever company this is on the ice at Warrior Ice Arena has been entertaining.
Any players out there, Adam?
Yeah, I've been doing some advanced scouting here. I haven't seen anybody yet. But, yeah, no, it's been a quiet day across the league. We saw action leading up to the trade deadline, of course, where team Bruins played last night. It was very busy in the Nashville Predators, and they could make some more deals before all is said and done. But on the Bruins front, all is quiet so far. And you heard Don Sweeney talk about it earlier this week. He said he doesn't anticipate it being as busy as last year, but we could see some moves. And I think, the one move people sort of expect to see is maybe some help on the back end, maybe a right shot defenseman.
Well, that's certainly a possibility. And the other thing I'm thinking about, since we're here at Warrior, what a difference a year makes. We were outside in the sun. The Bruins were obviously in a position that they were going to sell some assets, and they sold considerably to make some changes and reposition their roster. The other thing that I think about, Adam and Brick, is between now and the deadline, that's when a lot of the more significant moves will take place, and I still expect some of the teams who've been quiet around the Eastern Conference will start to make some of those moves. But I would expect, as Don Sweeney had mentioned, that he'd like to reward his roster. We're going to wait to see how significant that's going to be.
Yeah, you used the word busy, Adam. I think Donnie really leaned on the word aggressive. I'm not going to be as aggressive as I've been in the past, and that makes sense. They had a game plan going into last year's trading deadline. They've had some successes this year with some of those moves that they made. They think that their plan is moving in the right direction, and the worst thing you can do is make bad deals right now, and I think that's part of the plan. However, you have to call audibles as opportunities present themselves, and I think for the purposes of this conversation, it's been a Western Conference heavy in terms of transaction across the board, and I think you're right, Judd. I think over the next hour or so, you're going to start seeing the East get a little bit more active. And I like to take a league view because it is a trading deadline day. It is interesting to see what's going on in the league, see what the teams out west that think they are Stanley Cup contenders, and they are, and how aggressive that they're going in order to get deeper, more balanced, strengthen the margins, the third and fourth line, the role players, the penalty killers, face-off guys, whatever it is they want to add to their lineup and still keep it cap compliant, which is new this year. When you get to the postseason. That being said, our focus is the Bruins and the teams that they're fighting in order to get in the playoffs, because I think that is a stated goal. They want to be a postseason team. They're in position. What are you going to do around the deadline, and what are the teams doing around you, whether it's wild card or in the division that you feel you can catch? So I think you're talking about what's Detroit doing, what's Montreal doing. Those are the two teams probably in the Atlantic. Buffalo's kind of separated themselves right up there with Tampa now. And then as far as the wild card, you got to look to the Metro, and that's going to be Pittsburgh, the Islanders, and Columbus.
Yeah, in Columbus, they made a trade. They got Connor Garland, the Scituate native, so he's going to join them for the stretch run. A couple of the teams that you mentioned, Brick, not so busy in Montreal, Detroit. They did reacquire David Perron. Buffalo did make some moves, although the move that they didn't make is the one that got headlines, right, with Colton Parayko. He invoked his no-trade clause, and so they weren't able to get him, but they did shore up the back end a little bit, making a deal with Winnipeg to get Luke Schenn and Logan Stanley. They also acquired Sam Carrick from the New York Rangers. So there has been some activity in the division. You just wonder if the Bruins are going to counter in any way, shape, or form.
That's one of the things that we're obviously going to have to watch. Clearly, Columbus made a big move acquiring Connor Garland here at the trade deadline. That's going to help them and try and make their push into maybe not only the wild card picture, but as you mentioned, maybe the division picture in the Metropolitan. And along the way, because you and I were talking before we came on, the Islanders, the Penguins, they've made a lot of moves here along the way. Will they make a few more so they ensure themselves that they're in the playoffs?
Yeah, and for the ability for Pittsburgh to hang in there without Sidney Crosby. I know they've lost 3 out of 4 now, so they're starting to slide a little bit. What's going to happen with Malkin? Is he going to get suspended? What's that team roster going to look like when the Bruins play them, their next game on Sunday? So these are things to consider and keep an eye on. Going back to Buffalo, we've always said they have incredible talent. They have tremendous skill, and now they're starting to figure it out. They're starting to play some really team hockey. Their top 4 on D are pretty darn good when you look at the talent and the skill and the skating ability and how well they can play. And now when you go get Stanley and Schenn, I think that's a little bit more than just a minor adjustment. I think that gives them a pretty stout third pair that they can roll right out there and do certain things as far as protect the front of the net. You mentioned right shot defenseman perhaps being part of the wish list for the Boston Bruins. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think the game in Nashville that they lost 6-3, and you heard Marco Sturm say 6 goals on the road, unacceptable. If we score 3, we should be able to win a game on the road, but it hasn't been that way this year. Just 11 road wins, and part of the reason, not the entire reason, but part of the reason is, they're not dominant in front of their own net. Too many goals from in close, screens, tips, rebounds, jam plays, whatever it might be. And I think if they can get add a defenseman, preferably a right shot with a little bit of jam in front of the net, it doesn't have to be a puck mover or a power play guy, but somebody that can help them defend, because their team defense, their goaltending, their PK on the road, it isn't where it needs to be if you want to be a playoff team, because they have significant road games in front of them.
Yeah, they do. The 12 of the 21 remaining are on the road. And Brick, we were looking at it yesterday, all the back-to-backs that the Bruins have. The second of the back-to-back in each of those scenarios is a road game. And so that's going to be a challenge for the Bruins moving forward. Okay, so not much action so far here at Warrior Ice Arena, but we will be here. We will be camped out. This is where we have decided to, take in some free skating and talk some possible trades. So we'll send it back to you guys for now.
Adam, thanks so much for that. Yeah, we're going to check in with you guys a little later on after the 3 p.m. deadline and see if any moves have been made for the Boston Bruins. So go enjoy that free skate. We're going to continue our discussion here. So as they said, Adam and Brick and Judd naming a lot of the moves that were made around the NHL. We have some big ones for you to show that were made as we bring up this board again. The deadline about 45 minutes away. So Anaheim acquiring John Carlson. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Corey Perry going to Tampa Bay. Nick Foligno reuniting with or hanging out, going to be playing with his brother who's currently out, but still with Minnesota. Buffalo getting Sam Carrick. Buffalo making a couple moves as well. And then we have Nick Deslauriers to discuss. Let's start with Washington and Anaheim. Alex Ovechkin said he was shocked, and it was one of the toughest days of his career when he found out the Caps dealt his friend, his teammate John Carlson, to the Ducks. Guys, 36 years old, 1,143 games with the Caps through 17 seasons.
Something like 1:15 in the morning, I think it went down. Given that Anaheim's on Pacific time, it's not that bad for them at 10:15. This is the only big trade that's happened so far, Razor, to me. Like this is trade deadline, worthy discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't have a contract. I don't know if they're going to re-sign. They're like a handful of teams out there, partner. They're trying to say, all right, what direction do we really like him, or does this stunt the growth? Now they get the first round pick back conditional and a third round. Says, well, it's not that much, but you're getting a first round pick. By the way, you could always re-sign there, but usually doesn't happen. But go to Anaheim, Joe Quenneville, doing what the owner wanted, making the playoffs. This should add one big question mark, though. I'll bring it to you with this. This kind of trade, a guy who's been with an organization for basically 20 years, East Coast, coast to coast, time zone difference, family life, all that stuff. It's not a slam dunk as far as I'm concerned that it works.
No, it typically will take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And it might not pay dividends. If Anaheim's looking at it as a playoff run, that these deals can pay off in the second round or the third round.
Right.
But not always do you get there. Because to your point, that it's just he has no idea anything else in the league. And that's just so odd for guys. I guess it helped. It worked for Florida last year, bringing in Brad, but there's a lot of guys there. He's a big piece. It'll be interesting to see how he fits out there. Anaheim could have a really good path, like the Oilers. They're in a good situation, and they have to go for it. They're like Buffalo, right? They're like Buffalo
no
in that
question.
you got to go all in and go.
And the good point you make about Florida having some guys. Well, Anaheim has some guys too, in no particular order. You know, the Trubas, Gudis, Kreider, Killorn, guys up front. So it should be easier acclimation. However, again, I go from the East Coast to the West Coast. That's a big difference. You know, Marchand went from
typically
Boston
the family's
to Florida.
not coming, different time zones, the whole thing. It's a lot.
That's a big deal.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. And I was just going to say that with Brad, and I'm not saying, I mean, this is last year's season, I'm not saying that it wasn't a surprise. It was definitely a surprise to us. But the fact that he hadn't negotiated a contract extension leading up to then, there were rumors for a while that something might happen.
Well, there was, and there wasn't as much around John Carlson because everybody associated with him regularly with the Caps. But it's just funny because the Caps are kind of, just kind of there right now. And by the way, Bruins play the Caps tomorrow.
On Saturday.
Tomorrow.
That's right,
And that's
at the
the
Garden.
second trade. They made another big minor trade, or medium trade, in Nick Dowd yesterday. Those are two character guys.
Those are two playoff guys.
Yeah.
Those are playoff guys, yeah.
So is it, if you're a player on the Caps, and we heard what Alex Ovechkin said about his friend, but like, is it too soon to be making those kind of deals about like, hey, we're counting ourselves out?
Well, they kind of did that. But they had two guys that were wanted. They needed draft picks. They'll sell it in the room. They'll sell it to the team that they had to make these moves. They weren't signing. We needed draft picks. We need to continue, but that doesn't mean we're out of it. That's what the sell job will be.
Okay, guys. Also, just coming down right kind of when we got to air, but Nick Delorier. Going to the Canes. So usually I list goals and assists, but in this case we're listing different stats. 6'1", 218 pounds, 694 pins in his NHL career.
One of the toughest guys out there. You know, they had Tanner and Nick had a long talk before the last game. It was nothing to do about fighting whatsoever. They're talking about the Olympic break. Wouldn't surprise me. You know, look, Nick Delorier only was playing when the Bruins were the opponent. He had been scrapped, so I think he had more than an inclination, Razor, that he was going to be at least potentially traded. No doubt about it. It's interesting to me as we watch one of the best, if not the best fight this year in the National Hockey League. This to me, and I'm really just going to read. Oh my God,
I know. It's so heavy.
Oh my God.
So heavy.
And by the way, I said this before, but on Bruin stuff, but Tanner Janot talked about how the long arms of Nick Delorier make it so hard to get on the inside on him. And how and he takes, you know, he gives and takes so well, and he's old school. So much respect for each other. Can you remember the last time Carolina brought in a guy like this?
No.
Because I was trying to think about, I'm sure there's been one there, but they've always been known for being one of the least fighting major teams in the NHL.
Oh, it's a good.
I cannot remember a time that they brought in a tough guy like that. Recent. I know that they had Jesse Boulerice there years ago, but I'm going back to, you know.
I don't remember one.
So the gap was there. They needed that for a push.
Well, I think because the price was so reasonable, that what's the worst thing that happened? You get a guy down the stretch that can play. Nobody, I mean, he's the type of guy that others respect the heck out of.
The other thing is, if Carolina was looking at the two wildcard teams right now, the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins,
you got somebody.
They needed somebody because both of those Canadiens and these Bruins can bully Carolina in a big way prior to this deal.
Assuming they can catch them.
Correct. Correct.
All right, guys. Good stuff so far. I'm
happy for Nick. Because he's been scratched lately. I'm happy for him.
Yeah,
it's good for him.
You want to play more?
Well, opportunity.
Opportunities there. We are, my math is so bad, but like 25, 35, 36. There you go. See, look, there's a counter. I don't even have to do math, guys.
Nope.
Why didn't anyone tell me? 36 minutes away from the deadline officially being over. We are going to look at the Atlantic Division, including the Red Wings, making some moves to bolster their roster next. Welcome back to our trade deadline special. Sophia, Billy, and Razor here in studio with you. And we've got Judd, Brick, and Adam at Warrior as we bring you some of the notable moves right now from the Atlantic Division. And as you can see on your screen there, Detroit, Buffalo, and that's where we want to focus in on the Buffalo Sabres and what they have done. Let's start with Logan Stanley, 27 years old, 21 points in 59 games in the final year of a 2-year, $2.5 million deal. UFA at the end of the season. What do they get from him?
Largeness.
Largeness, okay.
Depth D. You know, I mean, they already got a big D.
Yeah.
I mean, except for Bo and Byram, right? I mean, they're all Powers 6'5", Darlene 6'3".
Yeah, 6'7", he's 6'4".
Samuelson 6'5", I think. Boy, he had a good year for them.
Yeah, he's been very good.
Samuelson's been a big difference maker for them, and so is Josh Stone, in my opinion. Yeah. And I'm forgetting another big defenseman they have. Regardless, now they get another big guy who, but to me, he's a depth guy. But then they also got Luke Schenn. They got a lefty and a righty depth guys. So very important.
Kessel?
They have Mike. Yeah, but he's been in and out of the lineup too.
Yep.
This is a move that you make when you're going into the playoffs. You can never have enough D. We say it all the time. Buffalo's finally getting there. They're cooking right now. They're as good as any team in the National League. They have a bunch of young D that will be playing in the playoffs for the first time. These two guys are the opposite of that. They can add a lot of veteran leadership. They can be there to talk about how things are going to go and show leadership from the bottom six, like the back end of the pairs on the D side. So good pickup for Buffalo after regrouping from not getting Parayko. This might end up being just as good or maybe even better for them getting both of these guys.
Yeah, and I know we're seeing the toughness. He's like Tanner Jeannot, Saskatchewan tough.
Yes.
I mean, this guy, I mean, he's going against Ross Johnson, who's a mammoth human being. He's like a cruise ship, so big. But Luke Schenn's going to stick up for everybody. Logan Stanley, he's a fighter, but not a regular, but he's more than happy to at his size. But Luke Schenn is a real battler, a little warrior. They also bring Sam Carrick, too, up front. Now we're going to look in the back end here. There you go. There's Samuelson, Darlene. I mean, Bo and Byram, I thought he was 5'11". He's 6'1". So it's a big back end right there. It's enormous.
All right, guys. You already mentioned Luke Schenn. So, yes, he's also part of the deal, just keeping half of his salary, UFA at the end of the season as well. All right. David Perron going back to Detroit, played for the Wings from 2022 to 2024 in Ottawa the last 2 seasons, 37 years old. 25 points in 49 games. What does this give Detroit?
Very similar to Schenn in that he's an older guy. Detroit's a young team. A lot of guys that haven't gone on a long playoff run like Perron winning a Stanley Cup in 19 with St. Louis. He's going to be a veteran guy who can score a big goal, come up with a big play, and really help the youngsters throughout the Detroit Red Wing lineup. He's been with that organization already. Just a really well-respected veteran guy. I saw him talking this morning in an interview. Talked about the fit in Ottawa wasn't as good as he thought it would be. Just hasn't really been able to get his stride in Ottawa. A couple injuries, but he was excited to go back to Detroit, and he's excited to help those young guys out in the Red Wings try and get into the playoffs.
Yeah, as long as he can remain healthy.
He's an older guy. He's 36.
Yeah. But again, that can't be Steve Yzerman's only move.
It can't be. I feel like it can't be. They have so many prospects, etc.
Yeah.
And
they got 2 great goalies.
Yeah.
They can move one of them
They
somewhere.
just got another draft pick for Soderblom, so he's got
Where did they send Soderblom?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Forward for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh
So,
gets
interesting.
another 6'7"
Yeah,
forward.
exactly.
Like
him and Brazeau.
Yeah,
The Braz.
And Mantha. Yeah, that's
right.
right. 6'7".
Okay,
They're
I'll
everywhere.
stop. You mentioned Perron being 37 years old. Corey Perry, 40 is the new 30, guys.
He's 49 or 67.
40 is the new 30. He is going back to Tampa. 28 points in 50 games, 2 seasons with Tampa from 21 to 23. And Corey Perry keeps it going.
So good. This guy's, it's so great. The worm just continues to hang around. He'll go back to Tampa where he's been to the finals and a few times. He was in Edmonton a few times, finals. So
yes.
He is extremely valuable come playoff times. It's no coincidence that he continues to go to good teams at the end of these deadlines because he's just so valuable scoring trash goals like that out in front of the net, right?
He might challenge Chelios at 47 years old.
He really might.
He loves it.
He really does. And if you're, the hardest part about the league is not getting in the playoffs, but he's in the playoffs every year because he gets traded to the playoffs every year. He's really could become a Chelios and play till he's 52.
How do you move on emotionally from getting so close and not, with Edmonton, like you said, with Tampa, but that, I guess, keeps him hungry, keeps him going.
Yeah, he loves it.
He loves it, and he's won. Right,
he's already won one. So.
He's
2007.
2007 with Anaheim, and he loves playing the game. That's it. I mean, he's not playing for big bucks anymore right now, so he just loves playing the game. And I think it's also something, he knows, by the way, he knows that he's wanted.
That's right.
That's the other thing. So he understands it. This is his job. He gets to go and play hockey, and then he knows that he's going to go somewhere fun in the playoffs.
That's right.
Yeah, and good room guy.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, guys, we are just under 30 minutes left before that 3 p.m. deadline as we take you to break in our trade deadline special. You're looking at Warrior Ice Arena where Adam Pellerin, Judd Surratt, Andy Brickley are standing by. They're going to have breaking news if the Bruins make some moves before 3 p.m. Billy and Razor are going to stay on set with me. We'll be right back. Take a look at the East wildcard standings and some moves next. Welcome back to the show, our trade deadline special, taking you all the way to 4 o'clock, recapping what the league and the Boston Bruins might do ahead of this deadline. As we take a look at the Eastern Conference wildcard standings, there they are. The Boston Bruins with 73 points behind the Montreal Canadiens at 75. Blue Jackets right behind them. The Caps in town on Saturday to take on the Boston Bruins. They're trading away some names that have been with them for a long time, but we wanted to bring you some news. Braden Schenn going to the Islanders, apparently waived his no-trade clause to approve the move. The return is a first-round pick, third-round pick, and a prospect. And, Razor, did you say this? The Islanders and Blues staying at the same hotel in San Jose?
Yes, they
Just
are.
walk across the hall.
He doesn't even have to change his hotel room.
That's helpful.
That is super helpful for Braden. Hopefully he
Just
He's
change
got
the credit card.
Yeah, which
Incidentals.
which one you're
Right,
charging.
exactly.
That might be trickier than anything.
You hammer the mini bar now.
You're right.
Put it on the Blues. Here you go.
Are there still mini bars?
I don't know. No, probably not. Maybe some of the fancy hotels that they stay at. There's nowhere else, though. It's a good pickup for the Islanders. Again, they've leaked a little oil out of this Olympic break. It's very tight. Of course, they have not only a wild card to look at, but a division to worry about with Columbus breathing down their neck. The Metro's really tightened up, so them making a move here is understandable with Patrick and Matthew Darche being the new GM.
Yeah, Dart's doing a good job.
Yes.
To give back those big.
It's a lot.
This is an awful lot right here.
Have it right here. What they gave back?
The first, the third, and a prospect.
Yeah.
With that said, I don't have the Islanders' remaining picks and everything that they have, and he's got a couple of years. Darche obviously feels that with Sorokin in that right spot, Barzal as well, that this is their 3-year window to make a big run. And Matthew's done a really good job in 9 months on the job.
Yes, no question about it. And again, this is that I think of Schenn being an Islander type player. Like he'll fit into that system.
It's like
a
twins
glove.
with Bo Horvat.
Correct.
I mean,
exactly.
they're literally
right.
like twins.
They are
out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, guys, let's move on. Connor Garland from Vancouver to the Columbus Blue Jackets. 29-year-old right wing, last 5 seasons with the Canucks. Signed a 6-year, $36 million contract extension with the Canucks back on July 1st. That kicks in next season. And highest points total was 52 points in 77 games. That was 2021-2022. Vancouver gets a 2026 third-round pick, a 2028 second-round pick. What does Columbus get in Connor Garland?
They get a guy that can scoot. They get a guy that is very confident. They get a guy that is from Scituate and was rumored to be, in talks with the Bruins coming here. I like Connor. I do. I think I think for Columbus, even though they already have a lot of skill, he adds a scrappiness element that they continue to add some offense to this team. He's a 40 to 50 point guy regularly. I mean, is he more than that, Razor? And I don't mean that negatively. I'm saying I think if he's a regular 50-point guy, you're thrilled. This year doesn't count because Vancouver stinks.
No, that's right. Everyone stunk in Vancouver this year. I think it makes sense from this year's point of view, where Columbus is, to your point, how they play and the speed and the pace. He's going to have no problem keeping up with them. He adds a little bit of sandpaper, but like in
pestiness.
an annoying pest. I was going to say rat, but I didn't want him to take offense to that, so I was saying pest. No. That's the right word.
Sandpaper's good.
It's pesty. The big one though, he's got 5 years left at $6 million. Like this isn't going to be awesome in a few more years, I don't think, but it's a
But let's not forget, they're going to.
The cap's going to go up. There's going to be lots of room.
No question.
Yeah.
And my guess is there's a couple of guys there, in no particular order. Boone Jenner, even though he's a captain there, right? Charlie Coyle. Who am I forgetting? There's another four. Like Matthew Olivier's not old, but my point is he could take one of those
Fill
slots.
in those slots.
Yeah.
They can make it work. I just the reason why they didn't get as much for that because of that contract. It's a big one.
Right. There was no retainment.
Yes.
They kept everything there.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to continue to go down the line here. Warren Foegele. So the Sens get Warren Foegele from the LA Kings, 29-year-old. Last season, he spent last season and then this season, up to now, with the Kings. Career high in points last season and 9 points this season in 47 games.
I like Warren Foegele. I like him as a hockey player. He went to the finals with Edmonton 2 years ago. He is fast. He can play with pace. Did not match well with the Los Angeles Kings. I'm not surprised that didn't work. LA just doesn't play the way that Foegele would want to play. They don't really appreciate a guy who's not the most physical guy in the world and likes to get out on the rush. LA's not a rush team. He will fit in well with the Ottawa Senators, I think. I think he's going to be a handful.
Yeah, he will.
If Perron comes out and Foegele goes in, that's a big upgrade for the Ottawa Senators.
Interesting. Big. I guess it's an upgrade in the sense of Foegele maybe more
healthy.
Yes,
That's
correct.
healthier.
Again, we
And-
talked about Perron not being a good match, and himself saying that.
Yeah, because
Fogel's
he
a
doesn't
good-
skate like those guys.
Correct. He
By
wants to
the
slow
way,
it
the
down.
Ottawa Senators play against most other teams, and they look,
They are, honestly.
They play against the Boston Bruins, and
Oh,
they
yeah,
look
yeah,
like
yeah.
Stanley Cup champs.
It's
And-
unbelievable. It
Like,
really is.
They are road runners with
Yes.
like ferocity when they play the Boston Bruins, and they make it look easy.
No, and they get 10 shots against teams on other nights.
Right.
It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he brings some experience. This is also for him a huge opportunity for moving forward.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this has not been, as you said already, not a good year for him in LA.
Well, guys, hockey is having quite the year, from TV series to the Olympics, NHL players being in the Olympics. The growth of the game in terms of viewership is going up. And Gary Bettman actually joined the varsity to talk about that. We're going to play that for you on the other side of the break. Welcome back to our trade deadline special. We've got boots on the ground at Warrior Ice Arena. Adam, Judd, and Brick. They're going to be awaiting Don Sweeney's news and if the Bruins have made any moves. 16 minutes to make moves. The deadline, of course, 3 p.m. And Billy and Razor are with me on set in our Salem 5 studio. We're just kind of recapping what's been going around as the Bruins haven't made any notable moves yet. So these are the NHL's notable moves, and some of them, of course, we already discussed: John Carlson, Corey Perry, Nick Delorier, Braden Schenn. And in the middle there, Minnesota acquiring Nick Foligno from Chicago. Spent the last 3 seasons there. He's going to the Wild for future considerations. At 38 years old, the big news is he's joining his brother, Marcus Foligno, who currently is out with a lower body injury. Timeline online says week to week. But the brother is just delighted to be playing together in the NHL. What a story.
Yeah, evidently Nick called his brother Marcus earlier today and said, hey, I'm moving to another team. I'm going to be out of here. And Marcus said, oh, hey, I'm good luck. I'm sorry to hear that. He goes, I'll see you in a couple of hours.
Oh, that's so cute.
And then they were, everybody was happy.
That's nice.
Nick Foligno, went to Chicago, and he extended his career there, made some really good money there, helped lead, do some good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But he's near the end now, and this is an awesome opportunity for him. And so Minnesota, like Razor said earlier, along with Colorado and Dallas, loading up the arms race. That will be a very interesting first 2 weeks in the NHL. And every year now, because of this, I'm not a fan of playoff system, you always have 2 weeks of pure chaos, of two, if not three teams,
Yeah, two of those three teams aren't getting out of the second round.
Right.
It's going to be
right.
It's going to be
Crazy.
bonkers, absolute bonkers. And Nick Foligno will be, in and out of the lineup would be my guess. A guy who's just there and a kind of a coach, almost player coach, Reg Dunlop. That he'll have that kind of a role there in Minnesota, and I'm sure he'll do very well at that.
So his brother taking to Instagram to announce that Nick is going to be joining him. You can't hear the song, but it was to the song "Hey Brother." Remember you asked me if I could sing? I'm not going to do it.
Oh, I thought you were going to.
Hey brother.
There you go.
That's all I got.
Keep going.
No,
I think
I actually don't know the rest of the lyrics.
Yeah.
I don't have 13 minutes to sing.
Something,
oh my God.
there has to be one deal that's going to make us say yes in the next 13 minutes. Otherwise, this will go down as the lamest NHL trade deadline.
No way. There have been worse.
No way.
There have been. I remember worse ones.
You do?
When we were at Sportsnet, yes. And by the way, we'd have to be up at we'd be on air at 6 in the morning till 6 p.m. Remember that?
Yeah,
that was crazy.
That's why they were so bad.
The craft services.
No, that's
right. The craft services needed to step up too.
That was. No, but there's always better deal.
Hold on. I have stats about how many. Go on.
Okay.
Keep going. Yeah. Keep
Get
going.
the stats.
Look it up.
I got the
Get
stats.
the stats.
I'll
the
tap
least
dance
amount
and-
of deals. The least amount of deals ever made.
Okay, talk though. I have to
there's
read the
been
stats.
nothing happening, so I don't know what. I already
I
ate
don't
my
know how
cookie.
many
I'm finishing my coffee.
I don't know how
Like-
many we have today.
Just to that point, right? You look at all these lists, right? The top 10 of all the lists, all the lists you get.
Yeah.
One of those guys has moved, and that was Mackenzie Weegar. Not one other of the top 11, 12, 13 guys. Just one of the top 13 guys on all the lists.
No, that's a good
dealt.
point in terms of like
Nothing
rumors
that-
and splashes. Right. Right.
Volume, the volume's nice because it gives you something to constantly talk about. But
Yeah,
we've
but it's
had
not like big splashes.
We've had, the Weegar deal was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Right? It was good.
It's fine.
The Carlson deal.
one was good because it was at night and no one saw John Carlson getting dealt.
Right.
Kind of cool, but.
Right. But we have not had that one deal that makes you go, yes, trade deadline. Awesome.
Well, we are approaching 10 minutes to the deadline. Of course, it ends at 3, but deals kind of trickle in a little after that. So that's what we're waiting for. You never know. Last-minute phone call. Deal like that. As we look at the podium at Warrior Ice Arena, of course, GM Don Sweeney is going to address the media afterwards to discuss what happened, what didn't happen, if he gives us that, what almost happened. But for now, nothing major to report for the Boston Bruins. Again, we've got Adam Pellerin, Judd Surratt, and Andy Brickley at Warrior. These guys are on set with me. We are going to send it to break. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to our trade deadline special. You're looking at shots of Warrior Ice Arena, where we've got a couple guys boots on the ground waiting to hear from Don Sweeney after the 3 p.m. deadline, whereas we are here in our Salem 5 studio with Billy and Razor as we're recapping what the Bruins might do. Still under 10 minutes to the deadline. Deals often trickle in a little after 3 o'clock as well. But as we discussed before the break, a bit of a quieter trade deadline in terms of maybe not amount of moves made, but the big names. There was one big one, though. We're going to show you the NHL league-wide, some of the moves that were made leading up to the deadline and today. John Carlson being one of them, guys, going to Anaheim from Washington. He spent his entire career, over 1,100 games in Washington. Alex Ovechkin addressing the media, or Alex Ovechkin being quoted as saying one of the toughest days of his career. Were you surprised by this move? I was, but you guys are more insight than I do about this John Carlson going to Anaheim. Washington kind of saying, what are they saying with this?
Well, what they're saying is John Carlson isn't in their plans going forward, and they weren't going to be able to sign him, and they had an opportunity to get a first-round pick and a third-round pick for him, and they didn't want to pass up on that opportunity. I don't think it necessarily means that they're not completely waving the white towel. They're 4 points out of a playoff spot. They're doing the math though as well, where they have 3 games in hand on everybody. It's going to be they're the one looking further on the outside compared to all the other teams. And again, they wanted to be able to continue moving forward with their organization, with the young guys they have, by acquiring a few assets.
Billy, anything?
Oh, Ray's was great there.
Okay.
Thank you.
From an Anaheim perspective, they get a guy who will help. They already have Jackson Lacombe, who's a young defenseman that, if the hardcore hockey fans will know from Team USA, he was a scratch regularly, but he's an outstanding young defenseman. But now he's a lefty, and now they have a righty in Carlson. So you've got 2 guys that can help run their power play now, different units. And Carlson is a mammoth presence on the power play because he's got a very, what I would call, sneaky hard shot, but also his ability to get pucks through, and he creates an awful lot with good assists from the back end. He gives them another element like that, Razor, in Anaheim, that even though they can score already, now they have another guy in the back end to bring it, and another veteran presence. So for Washington, very curious to see how they come in and look when they play the Bruins tomorrow without Nick Dowd, who is, for the last couple of years, has been a real character guys for the Caps on that fourth line predominantly, and good face-off guy, great penalty killer. He's gone to Vegas, and now Carlson goes to Anaheim. So they still got good players, don't get me wrong, but you're talking 2 kind of central nervous system guys there.
What's the mood?
Well, here's the thing. We were kind of talking about that as we were setting up the Nashville Predators game last year. Look at that. They were a mess, and the Bruins need to take advantage of this emotional team, and they don't know what they are. And then they got blown out 6-3. And Razor, PJ and Billy were on the desk yesterday, so I want to ask you this because I actually wanted to jump in yesterday, but PJ wouldn't stop talking, so I couldn't really get in there. But what I wanted to
tough jump in.
It's a tough jump in. And in our office over
says
here.
That about me.
Hey, you were outdone. You were outdone by Mr. PJ Stock. I heard everyone working on the show in our office talking about the Bruins, of course, because we're Bruins fans, and they were talking about this team that didn't look good yesterday and what this means ahead of the deadline. And what I wanted to say, because I think PJ was saying, like, now that you saw the performance yesterday, then they realize they're not going to go deep in the playoffs because of how they played yesterday. Are we really making those kind of decisions ahead of the trade deadline based on one game that happened yesterday?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't go to that extreme.
Am I wrong in kind of quoting how you and PJ talked about that?
I didn't say that. I said they're going to still try to do some things, but nothing's going to be overly dramatic.
Yeah,
right.
And again, Don told us all that on Monday.
Right.
Don set this all up on Monday for what we're seeing to this point right now.
Look at these highlights.
And yeah, so no, I wouldn't read anything into losing to a Western Conference team, and they obviously the young guys that Nashville put into their lineup had the energy, and the Bruins didn't, and they got smoked. But you have an opportunity to get 4 points in the Eastern Conference teams this weekend. I don't think so.
You win those 2 games, you're fine, or fine is the wrong word. You're a lot better off. This was a real, thinking back on it, this was a real Well, first of all, it was a crappy game by the Bruins. That's obvious. But also, I'll bet you the coaches were concerned about it. You're going against a team that literally has nothing to lose. They know it, and we talked about the 4 kids get called up in the last 24 hours to come play.
Yeah, showing off.
A few others are going to get more ice time. Matthew Wood stepped up beautifully for them. The Bruins, Razor, I don't know if how you watched it or viewed it. Were they? I'm rhetorically asking her. Were they just nervous that some of these guys were, meaning the Bruins players, that they could get, traded? Were they checked out because, they're playing a Western Conference team that's, even though they're not at the bottom of the barrel, you know what I mean? They're
Geeky
not
said they were reminded of what national.
Being reminded and feeling are two different things.
No, 100%. But at least it was on their radar. At least they were talking about, like, hey, no easy outs in the NHL, and this team has nothing to.
Well,
lose.
the way that they played, it sure seemed to me like the reminder did not seep through to them.
Yeah, it feels like they look past them a little bit, and then they, Lindholm doesn't get the chance at the end of the second. They get a 4-on-3 at the start, and it's 2-0, and then you're chasing, and pucks are going in off. Like it just turned into ugliness because I think they were assuming they would be up 2-0, and they weren't. And once they got down, they lost their way.
Sloppy play we were talking about.
It was, I mean, guys, led by your number 1 guy.
David Pastrnak
had a really hard
-3.
time getting. It's more than the -3. It was the handling of the puck and the misplays.
Again, at this time you're going to lose more. They're going to lose more. It's all about the next game. We said the same thing when they lost in Philly. They came back and beat Pittsburgh. If they do the same thing this weekend,
okay,
it's
fair enough.
irrelevant,
But let me ask you this: we can pretend like we're sitting there having a beverage
the
on
Islanders
brew.
just lost 2 games, right, back to back, out west to bad teams. Technically.
Right. No, I get it, but out of the break, they've won 2 and lost 2. But even in those 2 games that they won, they goalied the other team.
Oh yeah.
So
no, it hasn't been. It had the power play hasn't got going.
See, to me,
David hasn't scored, right? Like the big guys have taken that. The offense that we were seeing hasn't generated.
To me, that's a bigger reason, probably, why they haven't made a bigger move. I still think they looked into a bunch of bigger moves. I think a lot. It's like you walk around in a certain neighborhood and you're looking at all these houses and you want to buy them and all the prices are way high. You're like, I can't justify that, right?
No, that's exactly.
And then maybe you find somebody next.
Montreal hasn't made a deal. Detroit hasn't made. No one's done anything.
Yeah.
And which tells you that nothing's really happening for the Bruins either.
Yep.
He probably kicked a bunch of tires and there's just nothing there.
Just over a minute, guys, to the trade deadline.
That's
Thank
good
God
math.
I don't have to do math.
That's really, really good math by you there.
Thank you, producer Sean, to having that ticker clock thingy, so I don't count
Just
on me.
no deal.
So
it's hilarious. There's just nothing.
Okay, but we got to have one coming in, right? We have to have
There's got to be one after the buzzer.
I mean, we got.
Ristolainen's done. He's not going anywhere. Flyers are done. Oilers are done.
Bennington didn't go anywhere.
No goalies.
No goalie went anywhere.
Leafs didn't do anything.
McMahon did not get traded, huh?
Not yet. He didn't go anywhere. They didn't do anything.
Leafs stink.
Leafs stink.
The Leafs struggling.
Yeah.
Leafs stink.
Yeah.
Leafs stink.
I
Rangers didn't get rid of any of their guys.
That doesn't surprise me as much because you're right. Well, they got Carrick. They moved again, which is crazy. You know why?
Because he's their only guy that
Oh,
works.
my God.
He's the one guy you want.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Go figure.
Right, the Robert Thomas rumors, nothing. Yeah, it kind of died earlier in the week.
Yeah. I know. Well, that was a weird thing the whole time.
It was weird.
If he's, what are you doing trading a 26-year-old guy with? I hear something in my head.
The deadline is officially over.
It's
3 o'clock.
Can we have a drink?
And
No,
can we get an early press conference here?
Right.
Let's not mess around with this press conference.
We probably will not have a drink, and we probably will not get an early press conference. But we can
We just did
have
an hour of TV about nothing.
Yeah.
No, there was stuff. There was stuff, guys.
Literally
Hey, Nick Foligno, John Carlson.
I'm not saying they're nothing. I'm saying
what the Buffalo Sabres are doing. 5 wins in a row.
But again,
Don't look now.
the best part is we didn't do 6 hours of nothing.
Yes, so
like
last
some
year
of
you
the
guys
other networks.
last year.
Oh no, we were here. We did
and
a
there
lot
wasn't
last
nothing.
year.
There wasn't
We
nothing.
did
last
we
year.
did a lot last year.
We were here till like 7 last year.
I remember.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big one.
I remember. It was nothing for a while, though, right? And then everything all at once?
Well, right. From
it was-
2:26 on or something,
Correct.
whatever it was.
Carlo was 226,
Yeah.
I think, and then the dominoes were flying.
Yeah.
You didn't have time
It
to...
was like, but wait, there's more. Yes. Hey. Yes.
Panthers are focused on signing Bobrovsky.
Okay, guys, so the deadline, as you look there, is officially passed, but we are waiting for potential deals to trickle through. Adam Pellerin, Judd Surratt, and Andy Brickley are at Warrior, and we are going to hear from, John Sweeney's having his live press conference at 4. That's going to be on NESN. Boston has entered the chat. All right, guys, so let's go to Adam, Judd, and Brick. Adam, unless you're seeing something on your phone that is coming through with the Bruins, it looks like it is staying put. The roster that they had yesterday, the NHL roster, is the roster that they will have on Saturday. But as the guys have been saying, not a lot of big moves around the league, so it's not like teams that they're going to be competing against are making some big changes and getting these big boosts. So with Judd and Brick, what does this mean for the Bees going ahead for this playoff push?
Well, first of all, Sophia, I keep refreshing because it's just after 3 o'clock. And as we all know, sometimes these deals trickle in and sometimes you get a deal and you say, okay, there is something, but nothing so far. And yeah, Sophia, I mean, we were just talking about, the last 21 games of the season for the Bruins and talking about the road ahead and the opponents they'll have to face and the opponents that made moves at the trade deadline. And you're looking specifically, of course, within the division and the Eastern Conference as a whole. And really not a lot going on. I mean, there were some moves made, and talked about Buffalo making some moves, and they're trying to get back to the postseason. But other than that, not a whole heck of a lot of action. And so with that said, we'll start here, Judd. Assuming the Bruins don't make any deals, and if they do, we'll talk about it. Assuming they don't, are you surprised that they didn't make any moves?
I don't know, at this point, because I think what we're waiting to hear, Adam, is what were the prices like around the National Hockey League? Because based on some of the moves that were or were not made today, it certainly has the feeling that the prices were very high and teams didn't want to pay for the assets necessarily around them. And I look at some of the teams either below them or just above them. I'm surprised Detroit hasn't made any significant moves, or Montreal hasn't made any significant moves, even Ottawa to try and get itself back into the playoffs. Again, if something trickles in, that's what we're waiting to find out. But Ottawa, a team that's trying to push to get in, all they add is Warren Foegele here down the stretch. But the other thing that I think about, guys, is that Don Sweeney had mentioned that the Bruins also wanted to keep an eye on what their focus was last year in trying to reposition the organization to acquire assets, to acquire picks, to acquire prospects, to put them in a better spot going forward. But it'll be very interesting to hear from the general manager after the trade deadline as he addresses the media.
Yeah, if there are no transactions involving the Boston Bruins at this trade deadline, fellas, I think it does reiterate, or it does strengthen that belief that the asking price was too high. I don't think they were going to hit a home run in this situation on the trade deadline, but they did want to add to the group because they earned it. They deserved it, and they wanted to have that message come from management to say, we believe in you guys, we believe we're a playoff team, and we're going to bring in a guy or two that's going to help us get there. And we were kind of hoping, particularly on the back end. That being said, it just kind of tells you it was a seller's market because of the asking prices. Yeah, there were some players that moved. There were significant players moved, but yeah, I'm concerned now, if nothing else comes across the wire, the message that has to be delivered from management to the players in that room that we're hoping that they might get some additional help on this final push in the regular season.
Yeah, it is interesting because, you talk to players over the course of the week leading up to the deadline, and Morgan Geekie talked about the group itself and how much they really like each other. They enjoy playing with each other, and they don't want to see anybody go, but understanding that it's a business. But at the same time, not adding players to the fold. What kind of message does that send? Because you are currently in a playoff position. You are a point up on Columbus with 21 games left to play. You still have 2 games left against the Blue Jackets on the road. And so very much in the mix. And so no reinforcements as of right now. Again, it could be a deal or two that trickles in. But what is, as a former player, Brick, what are you thinking right now if you're in a playoff spot and there are no moves made to help the team down the stretch?
Yeah, initially it's going to be a deflating feeling for the players, but they have to quickly remind themselves that even though there's nothing new coming into the door, nothing new coming into the locker room that's going to help us, there were no subtractions. They're still the same group, still the same nucleus, still the same chance to be a playoff team. And I know our focus is, it centers around making the postseason, and that's the hope. But the Bruins have a different perspective, and you touched on it, Judd. It's the plan they put in place a year ago at the trade deadline, and it's nowhere near complete. This is the process you go through in a rebuild, retool, whatever it is. And I think they get high marks for as quick a turnaround and the level of success, if you want to put it that way, to where they are right now in this postseason. But it wasn't going to jeopardize. Today was not going to jeopardize what their plan was. I'm sure they kicked the tires on a lot of different players that they thought could come in and help this group, and it was just too high an asking price, so you're going to have to just live with this roster. Now the question becomes the message to the team, how well they receive it, how bad do they want to be a playoff team?
The other thing I think about, Adam and Brick, is at least the way the NHL has been here for the last 5 or 6 seasons, there are really 2 significant times where you can change your roster during the course of the year. One is right around now at the trade deadline. The other, where it's a little bit easier, is around the draft and free agency. And maybe that's the time where you can make the moves that you really need because there are more teams that are involved. There's less pressure. You're not necessarily thinking about the playoffs. So if we're talking about moves that are more significant, and I know we talked about right defense or maybe adding some more impact in the top 6 and the top 9, that's probably much easier to accomplish during the summer. I think along the way, one of the things that I think the general manager, Don Sweeney, had mentioned before the start of the season is he thought the team would have some issues scoring. They haven't to this point, so he thought that they would pick up some offense along the way, and maybe some of that will trickle in between now and maybe some of the deadline moves that have not been announced since the 3 p.m. mark hit and we've hit the air.
Have any teams separated themselves? If you look at the Eastern Conference, Tampa added Corey Perry. Carolina added Nick Delorier. Those are the 2 division leaders. Has anybody separated themselves, or is it just trusting what you have for the most part to make the final push?
I think one of the things you have to consider, Adam, is the evaluation of each individual team by each individual management group. Buffalo looks at themselves like, we are playing the best hockey in a decade. Why would we even want to mess with this and keep what we got going? If we can add to it on the fringes, on the margins, in the role playing, whatever it might be, then let's do that. But let's keep our nucleus and our core together because they've figured it out. And I think Tampa felt that way. Now, they both have 80 points. I don't expect the Bruins to make up 7 points, and catch either of those teams. You can look at any 10-game segment in recent, you have to go back before the Olympic break to have a group of 10 games, but you don't make up much ground. Everybody wins. Everybody plays 3-point games. Bruins go 6-1-3, and they gain a point or two, or they lose a point or two, depending if you're Columbus or not. So it's so hard when you're 7 points back at this point in the season. I don't think you're going to catch them. So I think the focus becomes more on Detroit and Montreal. Don't worry about who's behind you or who's chasing you. I'm not concerned about that. You should be looking forward. And then you slide over to the Metro and you see what's going on with the other 3 teams I think you're in a dogfight there with. And that's where the evaluation becomes did anybody separate themselves? Islanders made a move of some significance to get Braden Schenn.
That's probably the biggest one at this point, but I also think about some of the teams that you heard some rumblings that they wanted to move players. Think of some of the teams that just in the Eastern Conference, out of the playoff picture, Toronto, New Jersey, the Rangers, just to name a few, and they had some guys that I guarantee that teams would want, but those guys didn't move here at the trade deadline. And maybe that was because the asking price was just too steep.
309. Haven't heard anything yet.
What do you think of,
Hit your phone.
We touched on Schenn. Adam, you brought the question up.
Sure.
We touched on Schenn. What's Connor Garland going to do for Columbus? Because Columbus, like Buffalo, they're on a roll. They are on a roll. So they didn't want to do a whole lot, but they had an opportunity to get a pretty good player in Connor Garland, and they jumped on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge addition, you would have to think, for the Blue Jackets. And again, a lot of excitement in Columbus and sort of trying to carry that down the stretch. And like we mentioned,
the Bruins
2 games.
Twice more.
2 games.
Well, and the other thing to think about with that team in particular, so they had some very attractive guys whose contracts will be done at season's end. Charlie Coyle, Boone Jenner. But the general manager, Donnie Waddell, said, I want to keep these guys. Not only do I want to keep them, I want to see if I can sign them. I think that they're at a point where they have stockpiled a lot of prospects and picks for being out of the playoffs for a long period of time. And yeah, they had that one stint in 2019 where they made their way back in. So they were in a position to make a move to get a guy like Connor Garland. He's certainly going to help that group here down the stretch. And we had talked about it before we head on. If you look at the Eastern Conference, and let's assume that Washington, based on some of the sales that they have made, you're basically looking at a 10-team race for 8 spots in the East.
One other thing I would add, fellas, and I feel like we had our finger on the pulse when we were talking about the Bruins and maybe what we were hoping might be coming in this direction, and that was a right shot defenseman. Look across the league and how many right shot defensemen were on the move in this trade deadline. At least 8 if you count them up.
Yeah, and Justin Falk was another one that, again, leading up to 3 p.m. was rumored to maybe be on the move. So we'll see if that materializes. But I can tell you one thing with certainty, absolute certainty. It's a lot different than last year around here, Warrior Ice Arena. So, again, expected to hear from Don Sweeney following the trade deadline. But we continue our coverage now as we send it back to studio.
Adam, thanks a lot. Actually, Justin Falk is going to Detroit, so we're going to talk about that with the guys on set. Thanks for your contributions. It just was coming down the wire while you guys were talking. So, guys, let's give an updated list of notable moves around the NHL trade deadline. Bobby McMann, you guys just talked about that before. We sent it over to the guys at Warrior and Justin Falk, which is where we are going to start. So he goes to Detroit. And right shot D.
First and a third.
There you go. Yeah, 32 points in 61 games.
I like Justin Falk. I do. Now, he's signed through next year, which is a good thing. I think he's got a heavy shot raiser. He's the kind of guy, especially from the top of the point or the left flank, and hammer it. He'd be in your top 4, right? He can play left and right, but mostly right side. But I think he's a great character guy. Known for a while. I would have been more than happy. I would have been. Now, what's the give back? The first and third's a lot. I mean, but this is the move that Detroit had to do this. I know they wanted to do some more stuff too, but they had to do something like this. Does this guarantee? It puts them in a better spot right now. It absolutely does, in my opinion.
Yeah. It fits well, Detroit. He fits Detroit really well with what his skill set is and what Detroit already has. He can be a big part from that back end. Again, those 32 points. He's an offensive guy. They have quite a few defensive guys there in Detroit. Big, long, shutdown type guys, other than Mo Siders. So it fits well for them. Good deal. Probably just a little too expensive from the Bruins' point of view. I'd be my guess.
Probably, yeah. I think they would have figured that first would have been involved regardless, just because that seems to be the going rate, right? Or at least the second.
Yeah. Well, which then, again, goes to just being too much for them, which why they didn't do anything.
I agree.
They just want to keep their first.
That coming down after the 3 p.m. I mean, before the deadline, but hearing about that afterwards.
Still a lot of time now for the Bruins to do other deals, though. I mean, I'm not saying right now. I'm talking about leading up to the draft. A ton. They have all these assets, and now I'll be shocked if they don't do something between now and the draft. Shocked. Something somewhat significant.
Okay, well, we'll see what Don Sweeney has to say about that, because like you said, over the last couple of years and the trades they made last time, they finally kind of bolstered what they were able to work with. Another one we wanted to circle. Are we talking Bobby McMann, guys? Or are we going? Yeah, we are going to Bobby McMann. Okay, so he, from the Toronto Maple Leafs, going to Seattle. Have we decided, have we seen for what yet?
Second and a fourth.
There you go. Second and a fourth. All right, what does Seattle get from Bobby McMann?
Seattle obviously wants to get in the mix. They're one of the Eastern or Western Conference teams that was quiet to this point. So a good deal by them just to make a deal, I think, for those guys, right? Like they're making the deal to make the deal. I think that's what this is.
That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Like Seattle, this is such a Seattle move.
Yeah, correct. Like he's not going to sign there. He's not going to stay out there. He might score like 3 goals while he's there this month. But they made a deal to make the deal. So for me, it's, okay, fine, good. Glad they made a deal if I'm a Seattle player because they did something, but he's not a guy that's going to be enough to move the needle to beat the Colorado Avalanche in the first round.
Right. And he's an older young guy.
Correct.
He came out of college after, 24? 20,
correct.
And then, but he's still young
29?
NHL terms.
I wouldn't want my team to sign him to a 5-year deal. this
Exactly.
summer. I don't trust what he's done.
Right. And there's been moments of tantalizing goodness with Toronto, which helps. Toronto market helps both elevate and eviscerate a player.
He gets a guy like a late blooming guy who gets 20 goals gets absolutely elevated in Toronto.
Of course.
At the same time, they're absolutely destroying Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
which doesn't make any sense.
Right, but then on his way out of town, they'll be like, "Oh, he wasn't that any good here." They'll forget the 20 goals that he had.
Correct.
They'll be like, "Well, he
I was
hasn't
just gonna say,
lived up to that."
They'll elevate that, and then like
If he had to resign next season, they'd destroy him.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yes.
100%.
It's toxic.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, that's the Toronto Maple Leaf fans with their players. So you mentioned a career high for him, 34 points in 74 games for Bobby McMahon, currently 32 in 60 for the with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now he's over at Seattle. So the Rangers put out a letter, you guys remember, apologizing to the fans. Are we surprised that Vincent Trocheck, there's been no fire sale, is staying put?
No.
Okay.
Because again, I keep using the same analogy. This is, you put your house out there, asking price, and then somebody comes back, and if you say, well, I really don't need to sell my house, I wanted to see if somebody would take the offer.
Are you trying to sell your house or something?
I might.
Subliminal
Actually,
messaging
pretty
over
much,
here.
yeah.
It seems like you're trying to
Yeah,
keep
DM
bringing
me.
it
I'll
up.
give you the directions how to get there.
So I say again, if
I'll
you're
tell you
trying
where
to
we're
sell
starting
your house.
bids.
No, but it's a good analogy. It's a good analogy.
But
I
I
like
think
it.
that, the question now that's going to be moving forward, I don't know how they keep him now. That meaning before next year. He'll play through the end of this year.
I just had his numbers over here. Keep going.
And they're not a good team, obviously. They're going through a lot. But now, how do you keep him and say, you're everything that we want, right? So I think between now and the draft, he gets moved. But I think they were, again, finding out if Minnesota gave him as much as they wanted, they'd have been like, great, let's do it right now.
Well, and he also made their decision much tougher because of the fact he didn't want to go west.
Right.
So he canceled 15, 16 teams right there. When you do that, now you look, okay, he doesn't want to go west. All right, well, there's teams in the East. There's only 2 of them, maybe.
But he wanted a mini, though. That's not west. It's west. It's central.
Yeah, I don't know if he was going to go there.
It says he's got a 12-team no-trade list as of July 2025.
I'm just using if he did say he didn't want to go west.
No, I know.
I agree with you that it could be, but when he said he doesn't want to go west, I include all of the Western Conference. So even if you are talking mini, like it was basically Carolina or bust.
Yeah.
There's no other,
Pittsburgh,
maybe Montreal,
but
as a second-line center. There was so much Nazem Kadri talk as well.
There's another player that
didn't go.
Right.
And Calgary didn't need to, they're gonzo. That one's interesting as well, that no Nazem.
I think his term turned some
probably didn't
suitors
get.
off.
Why would Calgary trade him for a 3rd-round pick? They don't need to do that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And no one's going to blow anybody out of the water because of the
3-year term at 35.
Correct.
36.
Yep.
Okay, guys, Vincent Trocheck staying put.
I think he gets moved, though. Don't you, in the offseason?
Yes, I do. Yeah. And I think everything will open up more. There'll be more teams.
Yeah.
Right now, a team, I'm not saying the Bruins, I'm just saying where the Bruins are right now. They don't need us. They can't bring a centerman in right now.
Right, no.
But in the summer, they can.
Agree with you 100%.
And there's probably 28 of those teams that can't use a center now, but will use one in the summer.
There's a fit there moving into next year for a guy like Trocheck on this team.
In the 4th year of a 7-year, $39.375 million contract. Okay, guys, so we're not seeing any. It's now well past the deadline, 20 minutes.
Go, Donnie.
Let's go, Donnie.
We're not seeing anything for the Bruins. So with this current build, what can the Bruins make of this final 21 games in the condensed schedule with the push to the playoffs? We'll discuss next. All right, welcome back to our trade deadline special. It is officially post-deadline. Some deals were trickling through, and we'll keep you posted if we hear of any others. But right now, let's take a look at the current Atlantic Division standings. There are the Boston Bruins with 73 points, holding on to that second wild card spot. You're not seeing that on your list, but that is where they are. The Washington Capitals, who are behind them, are coming into town on Saturday. We're going to talk about a couple of teams in the Atlantic, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, which we have discussed. They sent Nicholas Roy to the Avs for a conditional first-round draft choice in 2027, conditional fifth in 2026. The conditions are really complicated, so I'm going to leave that right now. But the Avalanche getting Nicholas Roy.
Yeah, big player, big, strong. Talked about the arms race in the Central. This Nick Waugh falls right into that, having to play a heavy game against Minnesota, against Dallas. Nick Waugh has done that for the Vegas Golden Knights over the years. Lots of playoff experience, lots of snarl in his game when necessary come playoff time, and it's a great pickup for Colorado.
And you're okay with the first round.
They paid
I know you're not a pick guy. I know that. But all kidding. I'm with you. But
yeah,
that shocked me.
If I'm Colorado, I don't care about draft picks at all. Yeah, so I'm completely fine with it. It's a lot though. It's a lot, and when Nick Waugh goes for this, it sets the mark,
right?
And that screws up everybody.
So you can blame Nick Waugh and Colorado for screwing up the trade deadline.
Correct, because if that's a second and a fifth, we'll probably have a different day.
It's true. It's amazing
100%.
how the optics of maybe
GMs
two
don't
deals.
want the optics that they've lost the deal,
right?
And you do lose the deal if you're getting less for a better player.
It empowers the other GMs to go out there and say, Nick Waugh gets. I'll take not only a first and a fifth. I'll take a first and a third.
Right.
Or whatever. Like
and
they'll
again,
up the ante.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier about the fact that no one needed to make the deal. A lot of times that happens a couple days early, and then right at the deadline, everyone has to get rid of their players. Like they didn't have a choice because of the salary cap. This year they didn't, and that's why we didn't see a lot at the end.
Guys, we're going to stick with the Toronto Maple Leafs, which we've been discussing. They are struggling, but this is common for them, just up and down. Austin Matthews, the captain, coming back from the Olympics, winning a gold. I don't know how much noise you get about what Leafs Nation is saying, but there was an uproar about him visiting the White House. I don't want to get into politics, but people burning jerseys, articles, features. He shouldn't have done that. Let's strip him of the captaincy. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. He's an American-born player. He played for Team USA, and he won a gold, and it's his choice, whatever he wants to do, whether you agree politically or not. That's my 2 cents, but it sounds like another fan base driving someone out of Toronto.
Potentially, yeah. And he's just like Connor McDavid. He has 2 years left on his contract after this season.
Yep.
So the Maple Leafs are in a win-now mode for Austin Matthews to stay. That's flat out. That's where I think he's at.
Yeah, but whether you win or lose, if you have a fan base that's so hot and cold on you, and I don't want to be there if I'm him.
I understand, and I mean he could tell them I don't want to be there, but he seems to be a pretty reasonable kid. You know what I mean? He's very controlled and thoughtful and everything. Now, some people say I'd like to see a little more fire, but regardless of that, I think he's going to work his way through this. So I don't disagree. He might say, screw it, I've had it. He might.
Yeah.
But my point, take all that out of it, okay? Again, take that element out of it. He's got 2 years, if he remains there, 2 years. Because if they don't do well, he's gone.
Next year is the big one.
That's it.
Because you have to extend him. You can't lose him for nothing, et cetera. You're now in Mitch Marner territory. So yes,
Same
no question. 12 months from now, if the Leafs stink again and Austin Matthews hasn't signed an extension, it's go time.
Probably be in L.A.
That's the one.
Yeah.
L.A. seems so obvious.
Whatever. You're right. Winning is obviously very important, but to me, and like you said, he's a tough kid. He's going to go through it. I don't want it. Once the fan bases turn on me like that for something that meant the world to me, I win an Olympic gold.
He's already. You're right.
I'm American.
You're right.
He was born American.
No, I don't. I'm in agreement with you on all that.
Totally. I'm just playing devil's advocate for good TV.
Right, but he's. I'm guessing, just guessing. Haven't had a talk with Austin since he's been back. I'm guessing he's just doing right now. Get through this. Get through this period right now. everything will play itself out, meaning just let's get through the rest of this horrific regular season. I got to imagine they're going to have a new coach in Toronto, and there's going to be some more moves in Toronto after this year. By the way, he might see one or two of his buddies go bye-bye or something like that, and he'd be like,
No,
you know
totally.
what, gone, donezo, and everything. So he's just going to get through the now, but they're far away from being really good.
Yeah, no, they're not going to be good. They'll have to pull off a miracle to be good next year.
Although I will say this, we didn't think the Bruins would be this good, right?
But
They
it's
don't have
different.
they don't have McAvoy and Lindholm on the back end. That's the difference. That's the big difference. They're just not very good on the back end.
Haven't been.
No.
Yeah.
And the goal, I actually don't know the numbers, goaltending situation.
It's more the product in front of them. They're okay. They're fine. The goalies are fine, but they're not Jeremy Swayman.
Once again, the Leafs Nation in shambles. Let's take a look at what the Bruins have coming up. Their draft pick list for 2026. So, a couple first rounders there.
They might not have that Toronto one
Yep, there's the conditional pick.
when
There
that
you go.
ends.
But remember,
the
they
way they're
cannot be top 5. So that doesn't mean, just so if there's any question, they cannot. So Toronto, if they win if Toronto
Correct.
fails more and ends up, let's just make it up 8th,
Yeah.
8th worst, and then they win the lottery,
If they pull the Islander move, then you lose the pick.
you lose the pick. Or let's say 11th, right? And
Correct.
So anything in the top 5,
Anything in the top 5, that is Toronto's.
it goes back to Teal
Okay.
So you're not going to know about that pick until after the lottery balls.
until May.
Correct.
Hopefully,
Either
Toronto's
way-
is bad enough, but good enough or bad enough that they stay in the 12th spot.
That's right.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, lose the draft lottery.
Third-
That's the key. Just
Yeah.
lose the draft lottery
Yeah.
for the Leafs. Ryan Nato's going to be a busy man. Head
Very
director of amateur scouting. There's a lot of picks there for them to make. Now they didn't get rid of any of them.
Last year's first round pick with the Boston Bruins, James Higgins. Of course, we're going to have a lot to discuss about him, but Don Sweeney shared his thoughts.
Well, our development guys have spent quite a bit of time. It's an easy lift to have so many guys at BC to go over and spend some extra time there. And I think we've been more specific with all of our guys, communication-wise and supportive with the coaches. In this case, Brownie was at the World Juniors, and him being the head coach, I think there's a really unique opportunity to sort of relay messages to James, in terms of the bigger picture of what translates to the pro and what doesn't. And we've been more intentional with that. And he's responded in a lot of those ways. His production is still really good. He's played a lot more in the wing, which could be an easier entry point for a young player in the National Hockey League. That, again, remains to be seen. We drafted him as a center. He can play center, but now he's playing both sides. So I think that adds to the versatility. But again, I think our player development guys have been very intentional in messaging, in conjunction with what the coaches are expecting, but also what the players need to address in their development.
Okay, I have so many questions for both of you. Billy, Jaffe, I'm going to start with you. Hockey East, James Higgins, we discussed this a little bit on the show. Could he see some playing time with the Boston Bruins? Can you remind fans just the rules before a entry-level contract kicks in? How many games?
Well, no, he has to sign his contract.
Right.
His entry level.
Yep.
And then come to the Bruins. He could play right away.
He could play right away.
Right.
Okay.
And they would, okay, what do they have, 21 games left?
21 games left.
All right, so let's back up. BC plays tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. So then, because they lost last night to UMass, BC is not, they're not guaranteed. They're right now, they're by the hair of their chin, staying on the NPI, which is the ranking index to get into the NCAA tournament. Razor, they probably have to get to the hockey's final.
Yes, semifinals minimum. Minimum, and they probably need they can't have any upsets. That's
right to get into the NCAA tournament.
Correct, which is on the last week of March.
Right. So in theory, the 20th or 21st, whatever, they could be done.
Correct.
The
BC
20th.
could be done.
Okay.
So Higgins could sign a contract.
Yep.
And then he could take the tee with his hockey bag, sticks. Right to the Garden,
and then
take the green line,
yeah.
and then he could just walk in and say, "I'm here," and then he can go play. let's wait and see. They'll give him some time to acclimate, practice with the team.
Yeah.
He'd get a couple of games in theory. If we're playing fun, hypothetical crystal balls type
Yes,
stuff.
we are.
And then from there, they would take a look. Now, if they're in the playoffs, it could be great to have him hang around. They would. He'd black ace it, and he'd be around, and he'd see what's going on. Could he play? Sure. Remember, Ryan Leonard
Yes,
did
we
that
talked about
before
that.
when he went there, and that was, he ended up playing in the playoffs and stuff. But here you get a guy that obviously has potential. But you know what he wants right now? He wants BC to go far.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, we'll see if that happens, and then we'll definitely have
Lost last night, huh?
2-1.
Lots of talk. Okay, so there has been a
Bravo was
Bruins
really
move,
good.
guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, it had to be made before the 3 p.m. deadline, but hearing that Lucas Reichel from the Vancouver Canucks is coming the Bruins' way for a 6th-round pick. And I'm just trying to get some information on Lucas Reichel. He's 23 years old.
He'd been in Chicago
Left
earlier.
winger,
Left
first round
winger.
pick.
There you go.
Yeah. So I wonder.
Played 14 games in Vancouver, 23 in the minors this year.
Right. No games in Chicago at all.
No.
5.
No.
5
Yeah,
this year.
this year. Yeah.
So I wonder, because remember they had the other deal involving 4 minor leaguers with Philadelphia, 2 each way. If this ends up being a deal that
Bolsters that.
helps, that regard too.
Yeah.
He had upside. I mean, the Blackhawks for a couple of years were like, okay, he's going to be a part. He's going to be a part. He's going to be a part. And he never became a real part of that organization.
Upside, had great, ends up being Murat Husnudinov. 2nd-round pick, comes here with no fanfare.
Yeah, but Murat, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Smaller, that's what this.
That'd be awesome.
There's talk Murat would go to the minors last year, et cetera, all that stuff, right?
Okay, I'll take it if that happens.
Yeah.
All right, so Lucas Reichel again. The Boston Bruins acquire him for the Vancouver Canucks for a 6th-round pick. TBD. We're not sure what year as of now. Okay, Don Sweeney, they're in the room. If they're in the room, that means he's close, okay? The media awaiting Don Sweeney to
Or it
address.
means they ran out of pizza.
Or it means they ran out of pizza. Could be
There
either.
to have a nap.
Yeah.
If
The comfy chairs.
Exactly.
Don Sweeney takes the podium, we will definitely play that for you over here live. We'll stream that for you. So don't go anywhere as we continue to discuss all the happenings coming down through the wires for the trade deadline 2026. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our trade deadline special. The NHL is riding high after Team USA took home its first Olympic gold medal in 46 years. The league already boasted greatly improved television ratings before the Olympics, and they're only getting better. The Varsity's John Oran sat down with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman today to talk about that and a lot more.
Gary, your TV ratings so far this year up, but as you said, they were up 29%, 30% going into the Olympics. What do you attribute that to? Certainly, that's more than just an HBO show that all of a sudden got popular.
It's never one thing, but everything we do and everything that drives interest in the game starts with what takes place on the ice. Our players have never been better, skillful, faster. The game, I think we have the best competitive balance of the four major sports. The game is exciting, it's entertaining, it's unpredictable. So some data points. 54%, give or take, of our games are tied at some point in the third period. We're seeing close to record numbers in the number of multi-goal come from behind victories, including games that are tied and won in the last 5 minutes of a game. You look at the races for the playoffs with less than a handful of exceptions. Everybody's in the hunt, and everybody knows how great and unpredictable our playoffs are, particularly when you start with the first round. And so the health of the game is what drives everything. And in terms of players, think about the spectrum of players we have playing the game, and I'll do this in age. So you have Crosby and Ovechkin, 39, 40 years old. You've got Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon in their mid to late 20s. And then you see this crop of young stars, Bedard, Celebrini, Schaefer. I mean, we are blessed with incredible talent throughout the league. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
Hey, there's a lot of great stuff with John Oran and the commissioner. For the full interview, tune into The Varsity, coming your way Monday at 6, right here on NESN. We heard Gary Bettman say it's not just one thing. He mentioned some of the maybe close games and the superstars. I mean, social media helps. What do you guys attribute this growth? And by the way, we know it's almost tradition in the league when he hands the Stanley Cup, everyone boos him, but he's been the game has grown a lot under Gary Bettman.
Oh, no question. The revenues and the salary cap, we keep talking about it. It's extremely impressive how much the league has grown and the revenues have grown, and it's been great for both players and owners.
Yeah, the thing about Gary, he's got thick skin.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't care.
He gets a kick out of it.
He gets a kick out of it. He expects it. He almost...
Yeah, he almost waits for it to, okay, boo me, I'll hand over the cup.
He'll play the villain if he keeps it what used to be 30. Well, actually, it used to be 21. Mm-hmm. Now it's up to 32 guys. People very happy, and that's the owners. Now, they're not always going to be completely happy, right? Mm-hmm. But when they see the valuation of their franchises now, holy smokes!
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they are ecstatic, right? So I see the quality of the game. I do see the excitement level. We see comebacks.
Yes.
That's something that keeps people involved.
The game on the ice is as good as it has been for a long time.
Yeah, and
it's exciting.
It is, and I feel like I don't know if we have more fights this year. I don't want to get too much of a tangent here because I think Don's coming up quickly, but I feel like the game's got a good mix of everything again right now. We've had a couple goalie fights and everything, and not that fighting is the difference. What I'm saying is it's all about the energy, the presentation of the game.
Can't trust AI. At least I don't. But is it true that if you're trying to buy an NHL team, you're at $2 billion?
Right. Well, what they're saying is if you're doing a expansion team, it's going to probably be $1 billion fee just to get in now.
Because Vegas was what, 500 million? I think it was Vegas was 500 million.
Yeah, 8 years ago.
Holy moly. Well, that's definitely gone up if you are an owner. Okay, so we are awaiting Don Sweeney to address the media at Warrior Ice Arena. As soon as he comes on, we're going to play that for you. We got to send it to break, though. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to our trade deadline special. I don't think you guys understand what happens to my brain when I see this many numbers on one sheet. I freak out, okay? So you're gonna have to help me. I'm focusing in on the estimated salary cap next year, 104 million, cap space 17.41 million. The rest, Billy, please help me.
Well, the rest are all what guys are making, I guess.
What are we doing with this?
I don't know. So, you're going to have a few guys. What are you going to do with Arvidsson? Do you bring him back? That's going to be a big question mark now. Same with Andrew Peeke.
Correct.
2 UFAs. Jordan Harris. By the way, nice. Jordan Harris was maybe the one guy that I was like, okay.
Yesterday?
Good stuff last night.
Okay.
I haven't played in 4 months. Pretty darn good.
No, for sure.
But the Bruins have money for next year. So do other teams. That's going to be the issue. It's not like they're the only ones. And then you're going to have to make a decision which of these players, if any, do you move out? You remember now, Middlestad's going to be entering his last year of his deal.
And Zacha.
Next year. And Pavel Zacha.
Yep. And Minton.
So
but he's entry level, right?
Correct.
He's going to he's
getting a bump.
Get the bump.
Oh, he's definitely getting a bump. So obviously the cap space. Oh, you know what? Actually, we can pause that conversation.
Saved by the Sweeney.
Woo!
Saved by Don.
Don Sweeney at Warrior Ice Arena addressing the media after the 2026
Accused
deadline.
of misleading the press in terms of what I said the other day. There would be a cautious approach, and they certainly different from last year. And it was. Doesn't mean we didn't explore an awful lot of things, to be perfectly honest and truthful, because we would like to have continued to add to our group. It just didn't materialize. But that being said, I certainly want to welcome Alexis and Massimo and Lucas to our group, and really, really wish Brett and Jackson luck. 2 really, really great young kids that have a bright future in front of them as hockey players. But they're good kids, and these are tough days to see kids. We think there's a good opportunity where they're going, and welcome the new guys to our group. So with that said, I'll open it up.
Don, how much did the way your team has looked coming out of the break cause you to be as cautious as you were today?
No, I was honest the other day in saying I don't think we've played to the same standard we were prior to the break. We've lost a little momentum, and we need to get it back. But we had charted a course last year that we knew this wasn't going to be one and done. Our intentions were to get back into right where we are and be the most competitive group we can. The guys have done a great job, the coaching staff, as I referenced as well. So we're still excited about that. I think our odds are that if we play the right way we're supposed to play, and we were before the break, that we're going to be a tough out and get in. So that's the challenge to the group. But 4 games is too small sample coming out of the break. We acknowledge we'd like to play better, and I acknowledged the other day in particular we have to play better on the road.
Donna, did you go down the path of potentially selling anyone off, and was their exploration of that?
Well, you always feel calls and players that are available on other teams or potentially available on your own. Other GMs are doing their job as to what's as I said, what's available, but also what teams are willing to explore. And in particular, you may be referring to Arvie and Andrew that are both penny UFAs. I was pretty consistent the other day that those guys have done a nice job. Arvie was arguably our best player last night, and I think the group deserves the opportunity to continue to forge forward. I will do my due diligence and have done it from a standpoint of if we could have improved the future of our hockey club, I would have looked at it as pragmatically as possible and done it. But that being said, it wasn't just about collecting any asset and to take away from the fabric of our group.
Don, looking at Lucas as a player, what do you like about his skill set, and do you think he could be a player that could get some more NHL reps later on this year?
He spent a lot of time in the league. He's had some success. Obviously a high-profile draft, great speed. 2-position player. Got moved to Vancouver for a different opportunity. It didn't necessarily work the way he wanted it to. Familiarity with our coach. So I think there's an opportunity. And we look at it and say that, it's an area that we could improve our hockey club and playing with a little more speed. Inside ice is going to be paramount for him to start, to be able to understand, to get to, whether that's at center or the wing. But he's got some upside that, as a young player, I still think that our guys were intrigued by to take a swing there.
Don, you had mentioned earlier in the week about right shot defenseman and peak is that. You have you said Arvidsson was maybe your best player last night. Have you looked into keeping those guys and extending those guys? Or is there a possibility those guys can still be part of your future?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in touch with both agents. They know where we stand right now in terms of how we're approaching the deadline. Hopefully my communication is honest and upfront with them. So we'll see. We'll continue to look at that, not unlike other players that we have extended at certain times when the window's open. So, we'll talk about it. I just haven't made a decision about it.
Were there negotiations today? Was today at all, or is that something that was in the past?
No, there were none today. That's just a general summary of how it's gone. My communication with their representatives.
It seemed like there was maybe a little bit less movement today in the league as a whole than what people were expecting. Did you notice there was maybe high asking prices? What was the reason why you think a lot of deals just kind of got left on the table?
I mean, I don't know if there's any one singular reason. There was certainly a lot of exploration, whether or not that tees it up for, we often say July and the fireworks that sometimes, surround the draft, and in between that short window. There's still a lot of high-end players that certainly moved, and I don't know what the overall volume necessarily of trades and players as it compares year over year. People were talking about, the new rules, how they're going to be applied moving forward. I don't think the playoff, cap stuff will necessarily be a big factor, but it could rear its head in some of these situations. That'll be to be determined. The brokerage part of things might have affected a little bit, but those are the new rules, so you have to abide by them.
On the first round picks that you do have, some of the conditions obviously are still up in the air. When it came to adding potentially like another foundational piece or another core piece that could cost one of those picks, did the uncertainty of where those picks may transfer or where they may land give you any pause in terms of a move of that magnitude?
We've had a lot of discussions. You just don't know the forecast of where they are. There's some parameters associated with some of those picks, and where some of those teams currently sit and where it might finish. So yeah, we were definitely trying to forecast what those 4 picks might look like. Certainly knowing kind of our own situation. We didn't move them because they weren't exactly burning a hole in my pocket. But that being said, we explored an awful lot of opportunities that if we felt, to your point of improving our team moving forward, adding to our group, it's areas that we would have done something if it really aligned for us.
Don, with this being the group for the rest of the season, is there one area you'd like this team to improve upon down the stretch here? Is there one area you want them to correct down the end of the season?
Well, I've mentioned obviously our play on the road. You'd be hard pressed to find a team, that wants to have playoff success that's not able to go out and win on the road. So that's an area we definitely have to be better at. Sometimes it's our start, sometimes our second period, like last night. We just do, and there's really no excuse for it, to be honest with you. To be a dominant team at home that we have, you should really be able to go into any environment and execute. Last night's an example of not. Again, second period. So, I think that. We do have to put a little more pressure, especially when on the road, and our forecheck has to be a little more effective. Last night we got a little sloppy in some of our coverage. That certainly wasn't the case prior to the break. So we've got to tighten up in that. Our power play was a little sloppy as well last night. So it's not any one thing. It's just how our group has to go out and execute and play. But I think the road is certainly an area that we have to be better. I'm worried about tomorrow because we're playing at home. Like I said, we're going back out on the road, and we do have a fair amount of games, obviously more so than our home games. So we have to, if we're going to get in, we're going to have to do the job.
I just want to make sure the 2 kids go to Providence and Reichel comes here pending the no.
All 3 will start in Providence.
They'll start there. Okay.
is there some rigmarole on the visa end with Canadian player? And
Shouldn't be. He started. Again, I'm not, Bridge and everybody else can sort of weigh in terms of that. My understanding is Lucas started on a visa in Chicago, went to Vancouver. We should be able to swap the teams and plug and play in that regard.
And you
so
said
it should be okay.
Okay. And you said Marco has some familiarity?
Yeah, he does.
Can you share any of that? What
I don't speak German, so I can't necessarily jump into how they're going to communicate, but he's got familiarity with the player.
Okay. You talked about Hagens earlier in the week, and I had one just to follow up on that. If it comes to that, he signs, turns pro. You had the experience with Charlie, whatever it was, 8 or 9 years ago, went to Providence for 3 or 4 games, then comes up in those 6 games in the playoffs. Is that something you'd want to model again, whether it's Hagens or anybody else?
I mean, in Charlie's case, it was a great path. So we're open, as I referenced, we're open to really anything as to where a player can come in and impact our roster. In that case, it played out that Charlie was an impact player at that particular time. He earned that right. So we'll have those open discussions at the right time with all of our players that are making that decision, and in conjunction with our coaching staff to see where a player does fit. They won't know him as well as our scouts and our development guys. They're going to have to trust a little bit if that is indeed the path we go down. But we'll just have an honest conversation with each one of them at the right time.
I know it's a while ago, but did you feel those 3 or 4 games gave them sort of a foot up?
I think it did both. No, it's not too small. It's the experience. It's another level. So, again, it's not a long time, but I think it's an indication that the player's in command regardless of what his circumstances are. And Charlie exemplified that. He was able to get down there. He wasn't overwhelmed by being in a pro environment. Handled every situation we put him in those games. Played yeoman minutes. So a while ago, Bruce was sitting next to me in one of the games, and you're just talking back and forth in terms of what he can handle. And then a lot of times the player will dictate that. What a player's able to be comfortable to go in and Craig Janney and Bob Joyce a long time ago, made a transition, from the Olympic program into the Boston Bruins, made an impact. Each player determines that.
When you see teams around you making moves, how difficult is it to resist that temptation just to get in on it, right? Columbus makes their moves and Islanders make their moves. Do you feel like where you are now, it's easier to resist that and trust the process that you have right now?
No, it's not easy. I mean, the competitive nature it's just the way we're wired. And again, I reference the fact that for almost 10 of the years we were in that absolute mindset. I also said that our expectations was for us to be in the exact situation of challenging to be in the playoffs, and that's what we should be doing. I would have liked to have, added to the group to the level that, not comparing to the Islanders or anybody else you talk about. I just think that we would always want to improve our team. Now, we did enough due diligence that maybe that applies, at the draft or afterwards, or maybe we take our picks because we're committed to the process that we started. But I think you're always running different scenarios that you can improve your hockey club, whether that was today or yesterday, but with the mindset of moving forward. That might include some of our younger players that Kev was just talking about. But that's the mandate. The mandate is to continue to get better. We stayed committed. We there's no question we didn't deviate from what we felt was the right choice. And I'm hoping that pays dividends right now with the guys that are still here because they've earned that right to carry us forward and moving forward as an organization.
Maybe you don't yet, but do you have a sense of how today might, Mike over in the room, obviously, Geeky and Pasternak had both said, hey, we think we've earned the right for an addition. Do you have a sense of how it might go over?
I mean, I could go to Geeks and say, 2 teams asked for you and you could have been playing somewhere else. If that's the honest answer that he'd like to hear. I don't think so, but again, I don't want to make light of it. Pasta's been through this, with me hitting the accelerator and putting people in the room that hopefully would do. But we didn't lose anybody off our team that's currently in a playoff position that wants to battle for it. I think they all respect the process. They understand it. And hopefully they, for everybody that might be thinking about it because it's an awkward day, you're out on the road, you're wondering whether or not you're you just never know whether or not you're getting traded. So hopefully they take a deep breath and really they just pin their ears back starting tomorrow and realize, like, hey, we've been good enough to be right where we are right now in a playoff position, and let's hold on to it.
Don, when you're in this intense drill for 48, 72 hours, whatever it is, and at 1:30 in the morning, Washington trades Carlson, is there a wow factor in that for you, or is it all just part of the fire hose?
I mean, it's all part of it. It's not. I mean, it's been longer than 48. I can tell you that. With our group and the amount of time that we interact and the games they're at and the communication. So it's a lot longer than that. And the lead up, and this was unique because obviously we had all the time off in between for the Olympics. One of the biggest things that I feel like you can't feel surprised that something went down, because then you feel like you haven't done your job. You should really have enough ear to the ground that somebody is potentially available, that is something you want to consider. And I would take umbrage that I haven't done that, and hopefully I have to a large degree. You're not going to get everyone, but you at least have to have your finger on the pulse that says this is something we can do. What do we want to do? What would we offer in that situation? Do we like the player? Do we cover the player? What are the assets we have to give up? What are they asking for? All those things start to fit together, but you do have to be ready, because you just never know what another team's thinking.
So just to follow up on that, Carlson specifically, did the return surprise you?
I'm not. I don't think it's fair for me to comment on a player and what another team decided to do. The return ended up being what they got. The trade was consummated because the two teams agreed to it. So you have to have knowledge of what that's going to be. And then the result afterwards, you start to store them away and realize is that the new benchmark?
With some of the bigger fish that might have been available that you might have been interested in, did you feel like you valued your future assets maybe, so much so that you weren't willing to part ways with, say, some of the future first-round picks or some of the current prospects that you have in the system that people might have been interested in?
I think it's a two-way street. I think you learn how other teams also value situations and what they ask for, as we do with other teams. I think it's a learning opportunity all the way around. Again, we didn't find a landing spot for some of the things you may be thinking about, but we did acquire information both for our own right and self-analysis and reflection is part of that. Are you overvaluing? Are you undervaluing? And where the trajectory of the player is in an honest fashion is all part of that as well. So, we have to continue to do that and do that accurately. And if you end up pulling the trigger because it's what's right, that's what you should feel good about, because you did it for all the right reasons.
So Don, could you have deviated based on what the conversations were like in terms of giving up picks and prospects for down the road?
I mean, as I referenced, we explored, several potential opportunities. We just didn't feel like it was maybe the timing and the assets that were required didn't align. The timing didn't align for that, for us, in terms of right now in this day. But we did. We certainly had assets that other people would have probably moved forward, and my decisions was that we weren't going to do it at this point in time today.
Based on that, do you feel like you have momentum building up toward what is to come in terms of perhaps a window when some of these picks and prospects will come to their respective peaks?
I mean, getting our organizational base back to where we felt it needed to get to was all part of that. Started, as I referenced, last year. Hopefully it continues. That is not to diminish where our players are currently at, because there's a lot of those guys that have had really good years, and because they've taken advantage of the opportunity that was being part of being the Boston Bruins, and that's what you get excited about. Now, we have to continue to build it. We have to continue to make better decisions. That involves the draft. That involves, if we are going to move a player, seeing where the marketplace goes at the end of the year, before the draft and in free agency. That's what we're committed to. So, we didn't deviate from it at this point in time. But there'll be opportunity, and I have to take advantage of that collectively with our staff.
Anything else? All right. Thanks, Don.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Don Sweeney addressing the media at Warrior Ice Arena ahead of a very quiet deadline, league-wide really, but for the Boston Bruins, guys. We are going to discuss this with Boston has entered the chat a little later on in a sec, but first, your initial thoughts to what he said. Anything stand out? I liked his comments on James Hagens and comparing it to Charlie McAvoy and what he was able to do when he first came up. Kevin Dupont asking that question. So what stood out to you guys?
Just that he tried. I mean, they investigated things, but the whole league being very sleepy. Quietest trade deadline I can remember. And league-wide, some GMs wanted to try and get ahead of it. They did. The prices were exorbitant. They kind of paid the price, and then he wasn't going to be willing to pay the price. And I don't blame him. And it didn't. The thing I guess that stood out to me is the admission that it's the games coming out of the break more so than just last night is cumulative effect. The 4 games haven't been great since they've been out of the break. Did it have a little bit?
But he's not worried about it.
But right, he's not worried about it. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't just last night's game. Looking at all of them, so he's not worried about it because his team. It's what we talked about both here and on Brew and everything about. I thought at least the best that they would be, the tops would be battling for the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, and that's where they're at right now. Yeah. So I'm fine with it. I'm fine they didn't. I'm just glad they didn't overpay. Oh my God, absolutely.
Well, I think the other thing that he really. What stood out to me the whole time was he didn't get rid of anybody either. Everyone wanted to talk about what you got. Why didn't you get somebody? Why didn't you? And obviously, he worked the phones. He works the phones more than anybody in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
The point was the prices were too high to get anybody. The point was he didn't sell either. He didn't get rid of 2 UFAs that have been huge pieces of this team that are coming up later in the season. Like he kept, that's as good of a buy for this group to the players is not getting anybody shipped out of town.
Agreed.
We're curious to see if one of them signs soon, especially Peak.
Correct.
Given the dearth of right-handed shot defensemen at his age, et cetera, I wonder if they will. Or, well, I mean, again, how's this for obvious? They can wait too. They can wait and see how that plays out.
As they can. Okay, guys, don't go anywhere. Billy.
Is there one other trade? No, I heard
Me?
Kadri.
Oh.
Kadri went back
you were
to
being
Colorado.
facetious.
Did?
Yeah, well, according to what somebody said in my ear, unless I'm hearing things, which after a couple hours that does happen.
After a couple minutes that happes to you. And guess what? You're going to have a chance to talk about it because Boston has entered the chat is coming up next. They're going to have a lot more on the trade deadline. We're going to stick around a little bit too to continue to give our thoughts, give context to what Don Sweeney said. The trade deadline as a whole. They're in the studio ready to go right beside us. We'll be right back after this break.